Welcome, everybody. All right, we're talking about marriage for the kids. Marital relationships in limbo is really a state of prolonged uncertainty and stagnation. And when people have too much time in their heads, things get really, really crazy because we start worrying, we build fear, we build animosity, we build resentment, and then we just sit there and we sit there in stagnation. And many people, if you understand what marriage is about, marriage is the test of your life as to what level of commitment you give life. If you are like most people, you give a try. And a lot of people try marriage. And when they try marriage, basically they have a back door. They don't want to use it, but they're going to use it because they know it's there and they're pretty much doing a try. So you're not making me happy. You're not doing this for me. You don't clean the house. You spend all the money. You don't listen to me. You don't care about me. And people go down that path and they build up stupid resentments. And that's because they have no integrity. They basically don't do commitment. They do half-ass commitment. And that's our problem these days is everybody is grass is greener on the other side. And so we have a very little commitment and anybody that does commit to anything, we resent them. We hate them because they're too rigid and they care too much about this and they just have their opinion is just doesn't consider a whole lot of opinions consider a whole lot of things before opinions are made. However, intelligent people do all the research before they make a big decision. Other people want to do it on the fly and make up the rules as they go. And that's really sad. And that's the world we live in. Make it up as you go. Wow, that leads to a lot of great things. So, our divorce rate is very, very high. Marriage is a will or won't. Because when you have a will or won't, you have no other choice but to make it work. We either will be married or we won't be married. If we're going to will be married, everything is our problem and we have to figure out how to make it work. And we have no business sitting in limbo trying to power struggle as who's going to get whatever they want while our kids sit around and watch us be little children. And basically, what happens is if you have a will or won't marriage, you're going to have a marriage that's going to last because they have boundaries and they care enough about each other and care enough about themselves to know anything I do to you is going to affect me. And guess what? I'm not getting a divorce, so I better figure out how to make my life a little better. God forbid people actually take commitments seriously. Many people just can't do it. They're just half-ass committers, don't trust anything in this life, don't trust themselves, and they float around divorcing one after the other. I call it job security, which is great in my field, but sadly, it's very destructive because the real victims are the kids that you breed with this creature and then divorce. And then all of a sudden, the children become the ex and they get treated like the ex and they get the consequences of the ex and all their income gets split in half, all their resources split in half, all their friendships get split in half. And they have to deal with being in the middle of both of you children doing your stupid Broadway production in court for a judge that could care less about whatever that you want them to make all the decisions because they're going to discover how the horrible person you have been because you never really know who you marry till you divorce them. And we all know that because when you divorce the person you've been married to, they know how to hurt you the worst. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to hurt you the worst. They're going to hit you right where it counts. Communication breakdown is one of the main signs where people are headed for divorce. And many people, they have their children and they have this obligation in their mind, I've got to be married for the kids. Well, if you're going to be married for the kids know that. Even if they're 2 years old, they realize what you idiots are doing. They can read the tea leaves. They're not dumb. They pick up on things. They observe you. They watch you every day. They have to deal with your stupid decisions and all your whimsical ideas of how to discipline them. They have to deal with all your random bullshit having to do with your moods and your tempers and all your stupid tantrums. They have to deal with all of it. They know you. They know how to read you because you're dangerous and you're safe. And so they read you both and they watch that you're both dangerous to each other and they just deal with it. And some people, well, we don't argue. We don't do we live in separate rooms, but we're really nice to each other. We have dinner together. We go on vacation, everyone. We talk every once in a while about our relatives or this, that, or the other. Yeah, that's great. Now, guess what you're modeling? You're modeling how they get to be married. Congratulations. Aren't you a wonderful human being and a great parent for doing that? Well, you are one of the majority of the population of the planet Earth. So, welcome to that majority. You've done very well. People are vague and they give uncertain responses. I don't know. We'll see. Just give me time and space. And that creates a lot of anxious uncertainty. People that talk in vague statements to each other because they don't like conflict, because they're too immature to do it. They're so passive aggressive, they have to put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off because they're little babies. So as they do that, they basically create a lot of animosity because the other partner wants something done and the other one doesn't. They want to talk about it and they don't know how to talk about it. Well, there's a thing called transactional analysis. Transactional analysis is a very simple communication tool. You have two people, you have a parent, adult, and a child, and then on the other side, another person, parent, adult, and child. Now, people that come home to somebody that goes, you didn't wash the dishes. You promised me you were going to wash the dishes. You were going to do this, this, this. You lied to me. You did this, this, this. They are standing in their parental side of themselves, treating you like a child. Now, are they incorrect? No, you didn't wash the dishes. No, you didn't do this. So, yes, they are correct about what they're angry about. What's sad is they're such egotistical turds that they have to act like they're your parent and they have to treat you like a child. So you receive it as a child. You go, I'm not a child. How dare you talk to me like this? That's what you think inside yourself. Sometimes we say that. But the bottom line is parent child is a power differential. You're never going to get a good response because the context of the conversation is you're more powerful than I am. You're smarter than me. I am being treated like a baby. And I don't really care what you have to say. I'm just not going to cooperate because I don't like, as an adult, being treated like a child. Now, then you have adult to adult communication. Now, if more people did that, we'd have less resentment. Because most people get in arguments over the way things are said rather than how things are said. How things are said is very simple. You focus on the words. If you want to be an adult, you do it at work. If you want to be an adult, you do conflict like, you didn't wash the dishes. I had to wash the dishes. I'd appreciate it if you would do that. I'd really appreciate it because I don't always have the time to get that done. That's adult conflict. Boy, is that scary. But passive aggressive people, they perceive conflict as parent child. And so they avoid conflict. And that's where we get into marital limbo because basically people do not confront each other properly in marriage. They are so frustrated, so angry, and they've avoided so many arguments over 20, 30, 40 years that they eventually give up on each other because they can't treat each other like adults. Transactional. That's how you do conflict. It's a transaction. It is not an emotional event. If you did that, you would have a much better opportunity to force each other to hear each other's words rather than read the tea leaves and read all the body language and all the tone and all the verbosity. You don't have to have all that. You just deliver the words. Deliver the words, and that's called intelligence. Avoidance of a relationship talks. A partner may refuse to discuss the relationship, refuse to discuss the feelings, refuse to discuss the thoughts, and often only communicating about practical logistics like where are the kids going, what are we having for dinner, when are we cleaning the house. Boy, that's a great relationship. That's deep, deep, and meaningful. If you want to have a deep and meaningful relationship, and you want to get out of limbo, and you want to have something that your kids would actually envy and be great, number one is you have to understand Non-verbally, that 2 foot space around your body has to be cracked open. If you're going to be married to somebody, you've got to break that space. That means you've got to enter each other's space because that's your intimacy zone. So whoever's entering that space is who you feel intimate with. When we have resentment in a marriage, we don't break that space. So the nonverbal is much more important than the verbal when breaking down resentment. That means that a hug, a touch, it doesn't mean you have to be gross, you have to linger around. It means very swift, simple moves. Kiss on the forehead, touch on the back, touch on the knee, touch on the hand. A simple hug, not anything hovering, not anything lingering. That's gross. I'm talking about very swift, enter the real estate, exit the real estate. The reason you do that is to remind each other that we belong together, and your kids need to see you do that. Now, verbally, what you also have to understand is that you have to discuss feelings. If you want to have a relationship on a deeper level, you don't ask a person, "How was your day? What did you do? Who did you talk to?" What you ask them is, "How do you feel about this? How do you feel about your day? How do you feel about this person? How do you feel about your boss today? How did you feel today?" Because if you want the gateway to a person's soul, you have to talk about feelings, but on the other part of it is you have to be willing to hear things you don't want to hear. Yeah, well, I feel about you that you don't listen to me, and I feel you don't care about me, and I feel you aren't attracted to me, and I feel like you don't like me. Well, if you're gonna go, "Oh, that's not true. That's not true because I did this. Did you forget what I did yesterday? Did you do this?" People do that crap all day long. They are retarded. It's sad. What you want to do is go, "I'm sorry you see me that way. Wow, it's good to know that. It's good to understand that you feel that way about me. I wasn't aware you really needed this thing. Well, I've told you 500 times. Okay, so I'm sorry. I must not have heard you 500 times. I'm hearing you now. Let you know I care about your feelings." You have to care about feelings if you're going to hear feelings. People that do it as a transaction, you're really not helping your relationship. If you want to have a relationship on a deeper level with your children, with your spouse, with your boss, with your friends, talk about feelings. How did you feel about this? How did you feel about this person? How did you feel about going here? How did you feel about doing this? Now we're talking about the human being and their experience as a human being, not, "Oh, I saw the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I brushed my teeth. Oh, I did this. Oh, I cleaned the yard." Nobody cares about stupid things you do without emotion. They care about what you do with emotion. They want to know what you care about. That's the gateway to the soul. Surface level conversations are superficial and forced. And when you do that, you are communicating that you are a superficial person, you are defensive, you have a lack of trust, you have a lack of empathy, you have a lack of concern for the human race. If you can do that to your spouse, you can do it to anybody. You have to cut that crap out if you're married. You have to break the barrier and actually empathize if you have a partner. If you don't like them and you've made them your enemy, that's your fault because you've interpreted them that way. And if you want to interpret people that way, do that. If you want to classify them as evil, do that. But if you're going to classify your partner as evil and we don't share our same things, we've changed, I don't love you anymore, don't be married to them. Get divorced, go off on your own, figure out yourself, figure out your life, even if you don't have a plan, but don't sit around with your partner, married to them, displaying to your children how to not be married. You're being a pig. Move on, grow up, be responsible for your life, and get out. Get divorced and move on and provide a model for your kids how to have a relationship. But so many people sit in limbo because they think it's making their kids' lives better. It's not making their lives better. It makes them worse. They need to see how to live life, how to make hard choices, how to do hard things, how to get out there and survive. And if you can't be with that partner because whatever you've decided is so awful and so heinous that you have to get divorced, but don't sit in limbo. You're teaching them how to be defensive. You're teaching them how to argue. They're teaching them how to be the jerk that you're married to. Emotional and behavior changes are also indicators that a relationship is going into limbo. Emotional distance and withdrawal. Once connected partner becomes distant and withdrawn, sleep on the other side, sit on the other end of the couch, don't watch the same shows, off doing their own hobbies, off doing whatever they want to do. They don't care if you're mad or not mad. If you're going to do that and you're going to have your kids watch you guys do that, that's not marriage. And that's not a way to be married. So you either double down and get married and do the right thing, invest in each other's lives, and cut the crap and stop avoiding each other and actually care about each other and how each other feels and how each other's state of existence is. Or you go off and be a selfish turd. And if you have to be a selfish turd, that's better off than watching you be in limbo, miserable with each other. One partner may send confusing signals, like discussing future plans for vacations, while simultaneously being emotionally distant or saying, I love you, but that's not an I love you. That's a condition. This offers just enough hope to keep the other partner hanging on. Planning that great vacation to Europe or whatever. And you plan that vacation 6 months, 8 months from now, and you want them to stay in the marriage because we're going to Europe. Well, that may work or may not work, but it really doesn't help things if it just means we're spending 8 months in limbo. Not a good idea. Not good for your kids. They read it. You think they don't because you're so egotistical. You think they're too young. They just don't understand. Well, they understand. They just don't get the whole context. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back and talk more about the signs that lead to limbo. So come back. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we're talking about the signs of what happens when people move into limbo in their relationship where they're married for the kids because they feel too bad about leaving. They don't want to disturb their life. We have this beautiful house, we have this beautiful school, we have all these things that the kids think everything's okay because we are so perfect together and we are so quiet and we don't do confrontation and we do all these wonderful, or maybe we argue every day, whatever. That everybody knows you're in limbo. Everybody that observes you, watches you at a restaurant. Anybody that knows you in your life knows you're sitting in limbo. They pick it up. You think they don't. You think you're so good at what you're doing. You're not. Meta communication's 95% of all communication. That's the nonverbal. People know how to read that. I know you do. And so the deal is you're blowing smoke up your own butt when you think that nobody knows that you are in limbo. If you're going to model limbo for your children are going to learn that they only make half a commitment to relationships, not full commitments. They don't understand what a will is. And if you want a child who's going to thrive in this life, they have to know what it takes to make a commitment, stick with it, and actually do it, finish it, do the right thing, put all their energy into it. That's what you want for them. But as you do this stupid we'll try to be married for the kids thing, you're going to pull that crap on them. You're teaching them to make life commitments in a halfway. So you either go towards it or go away from it, but you got to do something because sitting in the middle is a terrible model for your children because they, if they want to thrive in their life, have to make commitments. You know, vagueness is the devil's playground. It is where lots of bad things happen. Well, you didn't tell me you didn't want me to date. You didn't tell me that you were wanting to be sexual. You didn't tell me that you love me. You didn't tell me this. Well, the vagueness. It's vagueness. Vagueness is going to destroy everything because people fill in the blanks. If you're a vague person, if you're a pleaser, where you see only your value through pleasing other people, you're in big trouble. The bottom line is if you're codependent, meaning, oh, my narcissist spouse is blah, 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 it's all their fault. No, it's your fault. You groomed them to be that, and they groomed you to be what you are. So if you want to change it, you have to become a person who's decisive. Why does a person become decisive? Well, you become decisive so that you establish character. This is how I want to be loved. If you want to love me, you approach me this way. If you want to have a conversation with me, this is the pathway to it. If you don't want to do that, don't expect me to respond. The more decisions you make, where do you want to go to dinner? Well, I don't know. Where do you want to go? That's terrible. Cut it out. Put three options out there. If you get refused, fine, but at least you have character enough to make a decision. People that are vague are horribly unloved because nobody knows how to love you because all you want to do is please everybody else. Get over yourself. Start making choices so that people can decide if they want to be in a relationship with you or not. Because a half-assed relationship is not a relationship. Fierce independence. A partner may begin to be belligerently independent, becoming fiercely private, losing accountability for their time. Well, guess what? They're in apathy and they don't want to be married. So what do? You call them on it. Okay. If you don't want to be married, if you don't want to act like you're married, you don't want to be, I guess we're not going to be married. So you're going to pay the cost. Sorry. But you're not going to treat me this way. We're going to have to understand that this covenant is now a contract that can be broken. We have to operate that way. And guess what? Sometimes they come back to the party and actually cooperate because they don't want to lose half, if not all, of what they ever built. But the bottom line is if somebody is that asinine that they can cut you off and go off and do their own little thing in their own childish little way, they're probably not good marital material anymore. Once again, if you're going to be married, you better know how someone is about commitment because that is going to tell you how well your marriage is going to be. If you've been married, if you're going to marry somebody who's been married 6 times, you're probably going to be divorced. If you're with somebody that has had multiple kids with lots of different people, you're probably going to be divorced. If you're with somebody that's quit their job 8,000 times or been fired, worse than you're probably going to be divorced. If you want to measure what a person's going to be in a marriage, it tells you can read that by understanding how well they deal with commitment. How loyal are they? How smart are they? How caring are they about a commitment? Can they make it through the hard times when we don't love each other, when we're too busy to not be in touch with each other, when we're too busy off doing our own thing? Are they a person that has integrity? Because integrity is the property of attraction. If you think about it, old people, when they go in the nursing home, nobody shows up because they didn't manage their integrity 90% of the time. The other 10% people are just jerks. But most of the people where nobody wants to see you when you're old, nobody cares about you when you're old, they hope you go away and croak off someday, and then they get to inherit whatever's left of what you didn't spend. The bottom line is, those people, if you want to die with nobody around you and nobody cares, don't manage your integrity. Your marriage is your first read on what you do with integrity, whether or not you have it or not. And if you're going to be old, you better have integrity and you better value your decisions and you better value your commitments or you are going to be alone in this world. Resentment is a big factor. Irritability is a big factor in what alienates marriage. If I'm going to hold on to resentment, that's a lot of work. I don't like you because you treat me badly. You forget about me. You never think about me. You didn't text me today. You're supposed to text me at noon, but you didn't text me. So I don't think you ever love me. You don't love me. That's called cognitive bias. And resentment is built off of cognitive bias. So if I've decided that somebody is a total jerk, I'm probably going to collect evidence to reinforce how correct I am that you are a total jerk. Now, I'm going to ignore 99% of your communication and I'm going to pick up on the 1% and I'm going to factualize the 1% is that's who you are because I keep keeping track of when you've been a jerk so that I could prove that you're a jerk. You see, he didn't show up on time. You see, he didn't do this. You see, she didn't do that. She was this. She treated me like that. So you extract all those little moments to prove how right you are that the other person's a jerk. That's called cognitive bias. That creates resentment. Some people have no ability to be objective to understand that everybody's good and bad. Forgiveness is built on understanding intentions, not outcomes. I'm not going to sit around and tell you how stupid you are because you did this. I'm going to wonder what was driving you to make that decision. That's a person looking for forgiveness. That's a sign of intelligence. That's a sign of somebody who can be resilient. So you can either be resilient or you can be resenters. Resenters make their way through life walking with cement blocks under their feet. These people are very polarizing. They're hard to be around. They're terrible friends. They're terrible people. They're terrible spiritually. And if they want to get over it, they better learn how to be grateful because that's the opposite of resentment. Understanding what you're grateful for and focus on that instead of what you resent in others. If you want to be an attractive person, learn the value of gratefulness down to the minute detail of being grateful for the very small things that people do and you will be a much more attractive person. Nobody on this planet who carries resentment is an attractive person, no matter what they look like on the outside. There's only so long you could be around resentful people, and God forbid you be married to a turd who is resentful. Prioritizing other things is another sign. They prioritize their friends, their jobs, their hobbies, their significant, somebody else. Maybe they focus on their new marriage to their second spouse or whatever, or maybe they focus on their spouse's kids who like them better than their own kids. If you're one of these people that has priorities in the wrong places, you're going to be really hard to be around because you're sending a weird signal. If you're going to be married, you better put your energy into your marriage so your kids know what it looks like. That's really important. You fill your own tank before you fill everybody else's. Your tank is your marriage. Your tank is your relationships. You need to fill them, but you have to fill yourself first. And that means you have to take care of yourself. You have to be proud of yourself. You have to be able to be resilient. Many people aren't. Many people don't have the will. You see, if you lived in a third world country, you would understand they don't have depression and anxiety because they can't afford it. But we, sitting here in the United States, sit around on our flabby butts, which we can be identified all over the world by our fatness and our lack of being in shape. And the bottom line is that we are so comfortable that our mouths are our worst weapons rather than our bodies. That won't cut it in a third world country. In a third world country, you better get up and get to work. Who cares if you don't feel good? You ain't gonna eat tonight unless you get down to business. That's how life is meant to live. We lost our will. We lose our will by our safety. You are too safe in your marriage if you can afford to be resentful. If you can afford to be a turd. If you want to be a turd, go lay in the yard. Don't be a part of your family. Go away and be the turd, but don't make everybody else have to smell you. Lonely but together. That's another thing. Loneliness, marriage when it's not working, loneliness is the worst possible place a human being can be. Lonely in a marriage where you're tied to this turd. Your whole life is tied to this ugly, stinky person who does not take care of themselves. Great. Lovely. Well, what you want to do is you want to up your relationship with them. You want to be their best fan. You want to talk to them about their better self, the one you met. You want to talk to them about what they're capable of because you want to help them get out of their own pocket of depression and lift them up so that they can feel like they have something to work for. But if you're going to tear them down, you're fat, slob, you're ugly, you stink, blah, blah, blah. If you're going to be one of those people, that's so easy to pick people apart. You want to be somebody that lifts people up. If you lift people up, you're going to have better results. Start with your children, then work on your spouse. That's the way to start. People that are encouraging get so much more out of people in this life. There's this other thing where you're stuck in a rut, the groundhog marriage, where you have the same cup of coffee at the same time, you watch the same shows, you do the same things over and over and over every single day. You come home at this time, you do this, you do that, you do that. Routines are great. It's nice to have them. It's not a bad idea to have routines, but you need to have some flexibility to understand we have to have a relationship. Relationships are about feelings. It's not about phoning it in. And so if you have a job that requires you to spend a lot of time on feelings, you better save something in the tank for your relationship because your relationship is where everything's going to land when you're old. That is where you retire. You're left with this human being, your kids are gone, and you're stuck with this creature that you married. And guess what? You've got to make something of that. So why don't you do it early rather than later? Learn how to get to know the person. We all have a soul. We all suffer in this life. We all cope with suffering differently. What we have to understand is that's what we have in common. We all suffer in this life together as people. And if you identify empathetically with another human being's suffering that you are married to, and you care about their suffering, it's not that you're going to fix it, but you care about it. You're offering them a pathway to forgiveness and a relationship and a bond that you will never ever want to give up. But you have to care about each other's suffering. That's what makes marriage important. And guess what? That's what your kids need to learn that they have to look for is someone that cares about their suffering and they care about the other person's suffering. Couples that don't make plans don't stay together. If you see a couple that never makes any plans, they do the same thing every day, they don't plan a vacation, they don't plan a time, they don't know they don't have anything on the calendar. Oh yeah, kids got a ball game this day. Okay, we're gonna go do that. Okay, that's not gonna do it. Guys, you have to make memories. That's why we're here. Memories. That's what your legacy is, leaving behind memories. If you think the stupid things you do, playing golf, doing whatever stupid thing that you do to cope with your life, is going to be your legacy, it's not. It's going to be the thing you did with your kid, the thing you did with your spouse, the thing you said to your spouse, the time that you took the extra effort to do something. That is memories. Memories are very important. If you don't make them, you have no business being married. You're just sitting there coping with life and teaching your children how to cope with life in a terrible way. Avoidant the other thing that also causes a marriage to be paralyzed is these dumb alcoholics and drug addicts, people that live what's called a suicidal life. If you're married to somebody that lives a suicidal life and they put their alcohol or their drugs or their whatever in front of them, their affairs or whatever in front of them, their money, whatever they're addicted to, if they're going to put that before everything else, they're already dead. They're living a suicidal life. They're investing in something that doesn't feed them, it kills them because it has no relationship. And so people that relate to things that kill them, like not taking care of themselves, not going to the doctor, not showing up for friends, sitting in their little house until they finally croak off, if you're going to live like that, you're basically already dead. They just don't have the courage to kill themselves. So what they do is they live what's called a suicidal life. If you're married to somebody living a suicidal life, you've got to call them on it. I'm not living a suicidal life. You can live a suicidal life. You can kill yourself drinking. You can kill yourself smoking. You can kill yourself doing drugs. You can kill yourself going off and playing golf by yourself and doing whatever, not taking care of yourself, not going to work out. Fine. If you want to be a fat slob and die of a heart attack, that's your problem. I'm not going to have to be tied to that. You have to have the courage to call out your marriage in that way. You are living a suicidal life. I do not want to live a suicidal life. If you don't have the courage to create that boundary, you don't have the courage to save your marriage because that's what it takes to wake up your partner and say, look, I saw you looking at this chick down the street. You go down there and you have that, but I'm not going to sit around in this. So this is a decision maker. You either walk out the door and go park that thing down the street, or you stay here. One or the other, but I'm not living in this world wondering what you're doing down there. If you're going to be down there with this other chick, guess what? Party's over. That is a 60-year marriage because you set boundaries. That's what it takes. It's courage, it's integrity. That's very important, and you don't want to lose that. The other thing that creates a lot of signs of I don't know why I'm married to this person is low effort and low initiative. If you have this wet noodle partner, I don't know. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't care. If you got one of these, that's not a partner, that's a child. So, hey, if you want to be married, you better start making some choices. You know, choices. That's what it's going to take. So, sometimes counseling is something that's helpful. It calls you out, says, hey, if you're going to be married, the only way we teach each other how to love each other is making decisions. If you have this wet noodle, indecisive little child that you're married to and you do nothing about it, that's your fault. You're sitting in limbo because that's the limbo that you choose to live with. You can choose not to live in that. That's when you want to get outside the box and say, if this doesn't change, I don't know if we have a future because I can't live with a child. Guys, it's boundaries. Boundaries are very important if you want to keep something healthy in your life. All right, we're going to take another break. Come right back. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we're talking about married for the kids. And there's so many symptoms that tell us we're in a marriage for our children. But what it creates for the person receiving that is a lot of anxiety and depression because we don't really know what's going to happen, but in our heads, we're catastrophizing all of the worst outcomes. We're going to lose the house, we're going to lose our income, we're going to have to spend 200,000 on an attorney. He or she is going to turn into my worst enemy. But they're going to show this before the community. Our children are going to be split between us because I have a very immature partner. I mean, a million things go on in our heads that create a lot of torture. Eroding self-esteem, feeling taken for granted, consistently left in the dark, can damage your self-worth. Physical health problems, stress from marital stress can create physical symptoms. I just don't feel like working out. I don't feel like doing what I used to do. I don't feel like fixing up the house. I don't feel like vacuuming. I don't feel like doing anything because honestly, I have no feelings for you, so I don't care because apathy is the opposite of love. If you don't care anymore, it's real hard to have anything to draw from. You can get out of apathy when you choose to care, but you have to choose to care. You know, you have to address limbo. You know, you want perspective. You want to evaluate your relationship objectively. Advise people that you see. Are you guys in limbo? Are you married for the kids? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you want to do? What message are you sending the kids? What are you trying to do by just faking and acting like you're married? How lonely are you? I mean, do you really want this? Do you want to live like this? Are you even attracted to each other? Do you want to be attracted? Is there anything attractive about this person? Was there anything attractive? What is getting in the way? What are the barriers? How do you see this person? What are they to you? Many times we take a lot of the things that have hurt us in our life and we apply that to our partner. And then we see them through all of our hurts. And when we do that in our marriage, you are taking away from your marriage. You are being an egotistical pig. You need to back up and look for the good in your partner because it's real easy to look for the bad. You want to look for the good and you want to stay there. Doesn't mean you're delusional, but you want to be a positive force. You want to be a person of good. So you try to be attractive by being grateful and looking for the good in another person because when you're in a will or won't relationship, you can't afford but to look for the good in someone. Because if you look for the good in someone, you're going to get more of the good in someone. If you look for the bad in someone, you're going to get more of the bad in someone because they've already given up that you see them the way you see them and they're never going to change. You're never going to change. People get set in their ways, they get set in their resentments. They just lock in. They lock in and you're not going to change my mind. You're this, you're just this. Blah blah blah. Who has the mental disorder? That idiot. That is the one who has the mental disorder because they are so locked into their narcissistic perspective on another human being that they can't understand that they are missing out on millions and millions of layers of another human being because they are so locked into their judgment. People want black and white all day long, every day because they're idiots. Life is not black and white. It never will be black and white. Human beings are not black and white. They are gray, 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 and you better get good at reading all the gray, including the person you're married to if you're going to be married. They are not black and white. They are gray, gray, gray. They have good, they have bad. You need to look at the whole picture and you need to see the good in them. That is your job. If you married to someone, that is your job. Get with it, do your job. Stop making excuses. Stop acting like a jerk. Stop teaching your kids how to not be married and how to be jerks and get over yourself. You know, it's so sad to see people married like this, but they are. They're all over the place. They go to church, they go to work, they run companies, they do all kinds of great things. They're nurses and doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists and people that do all these great things in society. They go home and they're the biggest jerks you ever met in your life because the only commitment they have is to themselves. You're not here for yourself. A purpose driven life is never about you. It's what you have done in your life to give to others. What you are good at that other people's are not good at that they seek you for. And that includes your marriage. It's a job and it's hard work and you better get good at it. And you better stop trying to prove how correct you are like a little child if you're going to be married. It's really important. But a lot of people don't get it. They want to live in their misery and they want to make their children miserable because they're miserable. But they create their own misery because joy, I just want to be happy. No, you want joy in your life. Joy is a choice and it's a way of viewing things. And that's what you need to go for if you're going to live a healthy life. When a relationship becomes toxic, it's not tenable. Divorce is an obvious viable solution. That's great. Because if you're so toxic and you're so locked into your selfish little self, you're so locked into your high testosterone or your stupid, midlife crisis or your whatever uh perimenopause or whatever stupid thing that you excuse yourself to have, go through it, but do you have to make everybody a victim of it? Suck it up and deal with it. It's called life. We all suffer. If you got problems, don't make it everybody else's. Deal with it. And if you can't deal with it, get some help. But don't make your family the victim. Don't make your partner the victim. Why do people do this? They do it because they're egotistical pigs and they watch their parents do it. And it's sad. It's sad, but that's what people do. And we gotta stop and we gotta learn what accountability is because we're gonna lose marriage. That's why our kids don't even want to be married anymore. They see these miserable Generation Z's and all these different generations of idiots trying to be parents and all these idiots out there 90 years old and protesting the government. I mean, come on. These people are psychotic. What is the deal? Who wants to be married to that crap? Who wants to be married to somebody that all they talk about is politics and anarchy and doing stupid? I mean, come on. It's relationships, guys. That's life. It's all about relationships. That's what it's about. Relationships with people that are on the opposite side of you. It's called the Socratic method. Learning to view things from other perspectives gives you knowledge. That's how we learn the best, learning from each other. Even if I believe you are wrong, the willingness to hear someone else's point of view makes you a good human being because you value relationships. We need to do it for our kids. We need to do it for our spouse. We need to do it for people at work. We need to do it for our friends. Because you can be friends with anyone if you just have the patience to understand that there's good in them. Nearly everyone marries with the expectation of happily ever after. But that's the problem, an expectation. You cannot live in expectations because you're not God. You have no ability to have expectations when other people are involved. Get over yourself. It is, I prefer. That is the pathway to a good life. I prefer this would have worked out, but it didn't. I prefer you be nice to me, but you're not. I prefer we went over here instead of there, but we went here. Okay, I get it. I prefer that you did your homework. I prefer we had dinner at this time instead of that time. Now you're putting your things forward and you're giving people a chance to invite them to learn what you like. That's a preference. It's a great communication tool if you want to live a peaceful life because peace is accepting the unacceptable. People that live with expectations are very depressed because they have all these expectations that are never met, which means that all these things become failures and betrayals. Those are horrible emotions to live with. If you want to put betrayal and failure on your partner, you're going to feel pretty crappy about them, and they're going to feel pretty crappy about themselves being married to you. Listen, you have to surround yourself with people who lift you up, not bring you down. If someone brings you down, you set a boundary on that person to say, look, I can't take you as you are because you drag me down. If you want to be a person that builds me up, then you choose to be a person that builds me up. But if you're going to drag me down, I cannot spend a lot of energy on you. I cannot spend a lot of time in your presence. If you want to bring the best out of me and cooperate and be on the same team and do things and learn about things and understand that I do things differently than you do things differently than I do, and I do, I have to understand that we're in a relationship, but we have to hear each other. We have to understand that we come from different perspectives. If you are married to someone who sees the world differently than you do. You also are married to someone who is evolving and changing over time in experiences. They're changing their energy, they change their priorities, they change what's important. They change because we get older. So when you're married, you have to be able to adapt to change. You don't try to make them be what they used to be. You don't compare them now to what they used to be unless you want to put them down. You know, if you're going to be a turd that drags people down in your life and criticizes people, you are not a good human being. You have no business being in relationships, and you really need to really examine who the hell am I and what do I want to be about. People that want relationships bring people up and let people know what their potential are is when they're not doing well. Several questions come to mind when you're in a relationship that's in limbo. Are we really staying together for the sake of the kids? Or are we just afraid to come to terms that our lives are about to end together? You know, is divorce harmful to the kids? Are we going to make this harmful to the kids? How do we want to make this look? You know, the bottom line is nearly every state in the United States has laws and formulas for divorce. They are very specific. If you want something different than the laws when you get a divorce, you're an idiot because that's what divorce attorneys make lots of money on. Is trying to convince the other party that they should give you more than what you deserve. What you have is a formula. And if people follow the formula in every state that we live in, they're all different. Like if you're in California or Washington, you're pretty much done because everything's 50-50. But the bottom line is, if you're going to live like that, if you're going to go for a divorce, get the divorce from a legal perspective. Don't try to fight it because then you're going to spend $100,000 and waste your children's college, which a lot of people do. They blow all the money that could send their kids to college because they're angry at their ex-spouse. Boy, you're just a rocket scientist. That's just brilliant. What a little child. You know, 50% of the people out there that are parents are breeding stock. The other 50% are a spectrum of what it takes to be a real parent. You know, the sad news is that we have to grow up and stand up on our hind legs instead of like a bunch of dogs breeding. You got to take care of your kids. You're forming the next generation. They follow you, they pick up on you. Get a little smarter, be a little more accountable, care a little more about your kids, care about feelings. You know, that would be a great thing to make your life a little bit better. You know, we have to really understand that we are building the future for our children. And if you want them to want to have a relationship with you later on, if you're going to be a jerk and you're going to get divorced and you're going to lose all your money, and you're going to have no way to live, and then you get old, you really are hanging an albatross around their neck that they have to take care of you. That is not the way to raise children. They are not here to take care of you. You are here to set them up to have the life that they are here to live. If you're biblical, that is your job. It is not to lay them down with your burdens. That is not what you're here to do. If you go to church and you made yourself a life that your children have to carry you, you're not in a biblical relationship with God or yourself because you're not setting your kids up to be on this planet to serve a life that is purposeful, that they're here to live. They're not here to live for you. Divorce is unhappiness. Unhappiness is a choice. We have to understand if you're going to choose to be unhappy, if you're going to choose to have sex with a million people while you're married, you have no business being divorced, being married at all. You're setting a horrible example. It's really important for us to understand that we cannot afford a grass is greener strategy when we're married. It's either will or won't. I will or I won't be married. That's our show. I want to thank everybody for listening. I love hearing from you. You could do that on our webpage, voiceamerica.com, or libsyn, libsyn.com, Dr. Gary Bell's Absurd Psychology. Now remember, nobody ever died of divorce. Also, your ex is not your child's ex. And eventually, kids get old enough to see which parent was the real problem. Thanks for listening, everybody.